I was asked to do sort of like a personal experiences video, just kind of talking about things that I think about Connections Academy and the pros and cons, my personal experiences, courses and clubs and competitions that I've really liked, things sort of along those lines. So if you don't want to listen to that, that's cool, and you can like not watch the video. So the first thing that I was asked about was like my daily schedule. And I really wish I could say that I had one, because I should have one. But I'm kind of a night owl, and I stay up like ridiculously late. I'm on the East Coast. Yesterday I was up like until 11 a.m., like all night. And then I slept a little bit in the afternoon, and then I'm doing it again. I'm trying really hard to get my sleep schedule back on track, because school actually starts next week, and I don't have any mandatory live lessons, but I have some scary courses like AP Physics that I'm like kind of frightened about, so I definitely want to like go to those live lessons. So I'm trying to get my sleep schedule back on track. But the point here is that I'm not one of those like pristine students who gets up at a sane time, like 7 or 8 or 9 in the morning, and then like diligently does their work and gets stuff done. I'm really bad. I really need to be better with that this year, because in years previous I've just like, some days I wake up at 6 a.m., but most days I wake up at 4 p.m. and like, yeah, it's just bad. So I'm big on like mixing things up. Like, I'm not one of those students who I work every day, or at least I want to work every day, in the Connex system, like working on my courses, things like that, but I don't do I don't make progress in every course every single day. So one day I may be doing like a lot of microecon, and the next day I'm going to be doing like a lot of physics and statistics, and the next day it's something totally different, and then some days it's like nothing at all because I'm lazy. Don't be like me. But I mean, that's kind of the thing about virtual schooling, is that you kind of need to figure out what your schedule is and how you function as a person, and kind of adjust accordingly so that you can do your work when it suits you, unless you have like a requirement, like a mandatory live lesson, and then you have to go. But I've only ever had one of those, and it was actually in 8th grade, so I haven't had one since. Even for like AP Physics, I don't think it's required, even though it should be. Anyway, yeah, I don't have a schedule. Like I said, I need to be more consistent this year in working every day, at least in something, because I have a lot of courses. They're all AP except for French, and pre-calc, because there's no AP pre-calc. And I'm doing self-study in Calc 2, and like robotics and engineering stuff, and it's kind of scary. So I need to be more consistent along those lines. But that's basically all I have to say as far as schedule goes. I wish I could give advice, but I can't, because I'm terrible too. As far as what classes I really liked, I'm a big stickler for AP, as you can probably tell in like all of my answers and all of my videos and everything like that. I really like AP courses, not only because they're more challenging, like that's what everyone throws out, but it's more like the kind of work. Like, it's very analytical, it's reading and writing intensive, as opposed to like, here's 50 billion worksheets, fill them out, and all your answers better be like correct and textbook stuff. Like, you actually get to think about things, which I enjoy. In some AP courses, it is more like a vocab test than anything else. The more manageable kinds of APs, the ones that people start out with, tend to be like environmental science and psychology. Psychology is what I started out with. World history, even US history, although that's a lot more analytical. Those are good ones to start out with. I really liked psych. I liked the writing in psych. Especially towards the end, it was just kind of like a nice blend between science and social studies, even though it's a social studies credit, but whatever. It was a nice blend. I mean, they did a pretty intensive unit on like how the brain works and like neuroscience, and then they went all the way through like therapy and how all those different components of your brain are really relevant in how you think, like in cognition. And I really thought that was interesting. So I really liked AP Psych, even though it was the first one that I took in 9th grade. And I've liked, well, I had a kind of a love-hate relationship with AP Macro. It's my fault because I got caught up with some other projects that I was working on and didn't do school for a really long time. So I was really behind in AP Macro. I started working on it in May. Like, the semester end date was June 5th, and I started like May 3rd or May 5th or something like that. And I had to do the entire course in like a month. Less than a month, really, because then I needed extra time for other courses too, because I hadn't done those either, because I'm really bad. And so I had to rush through AP Macro. And AP Macro is brutal. Like, it was a time sink. It isn't the hardest AP there is. Definitely not, but it's just a different style. Economics is a different style, and macroeconomics especially, because there aren't really, like, concrete answers to things. It's just, this could be true in certain circumstances, but this is even more true in this circumstance. Like, you know those those questions you get on tests and stuff where your teacher's like, yes, you were right, but this is even more right? Think that, except the entire course. Yeah, like, it was really interesting, but terrible at the same time. So, I hated that class, and I really liked that class. So yeah, those were my favorites. I kind of crushed the hell out of Chem, though, so I guess I should, like, put that in there, because it was, fun, kind of. They had this one really killer project that I just answered an ask about, molecular modeling, and my chem teacher, and I love my chem teacher, but she picked out, like, all these really obscure electrons that we had to, like, go and, no, just, I'm not even gonna explain. It was just, no. Not electrons, chemicals or whatever. And then you had to, like, model the electrons as they're configured in the no. So that was hard, but, yeah, chem ended up well for me, grade-wise. As far as clubs and competitions, I was asked what clubs I do. But a better question is probably what clubs I don't do. Spanish club, because I don't take Spanish. And that's it. Well, and chess club too, because I didn't do chess club. If you want like a laundry list of clubs that I do, youth and government. I'm looking to do debate, probably through youth and government, but trying to get that established on its own too. I want to found a physics club at the school. I do French club, Italian club, Red Cross club, although I'm not really that involved in that. I just kind of signed up just because I can. Best reason. And Lego Robotics, which was, I'm too old for it now because there's like an age range. It was kind of a mix between a club and a competition. The school does it through FLL, First Lego League, First Lego League, and it's for like little kids, 9 through 14. Sorry if some of you are 9 through 14 and I just called you a little kid. I didn't mean it like that. I was just 14, so don't take it personally. But it's meant for like younger students, kind of. The organization that sponsors it has tiers for older students too, so that's all I mean by that. And Connections is sort of terrible in that they take things that could be competitive and fun and and like give you that kind of competition experience, and they're like, but that's too much pressure, we're only going to offer it as a club, which I think is stupid. Like, if you want another one that's just a club where you can go and have fun and tinker with things, that's great, go for it. I recognize people have anxiety issues. I have anxiety issues, like, I get this. But when it's only offered as a club and there's no like opportunity for competition, no, that's dumb. So they were kind of like that for a while. Thankfully, they let us compete, but they always put the emphasis on, we're just doing this just 'cause, and not like strive to actually learn a lot from this and be competitive and like make great things, which I think they should have emphasized more. It's not all about winning, but there is something to that like competitive nature that's kind of special, that like makes you innovate. And they didn't emphasize that, and that was stupid, and they should have. So that was my last club, yeah. As far as competitions, Lego Robotics, it counts, kind of. I don't do this through school, but I do it as an extension onto Lego Robotics, because now I aged out of that. So I'm doing the older tier, and it's first robotics. It's the first robotics competition, and you get to build like 150-pound like robots and drag them around. And that's cool. So I haven't officially started that yet. The build phase is like January through February. So it's going to be a while until we actually get to build it, but beforehand it's going to be, designing and like welding stuff and playing with electrical circuits and stuff. So it should be fun. And then the other thing I do, which takes most of my time, honestly, is the Real World Design Challenge. And this, I'm not sure if they offer it at any other Connections Academy schools, but they do offer it here, and it's really big here. We have 3 teams at this school, and if you happen to, like, if you go to the school I go to, you've probably heard of this, or you'll be getting a webmail very soon about this, because we're like trying to recruit kids for the other 2 teams. The Real World Design Challenge is an aviation design competition, so basically you design airplanes. They release a challenge every October. It's supposed to be early October, but they're always late. It's always late October, and yeah. And then you usually have until late January or early February to design your thingy, whatever it is, in response to the competition prompt that they give you. And then if you make it past the state championship, then you get to go to nationals. So I'm the team lead for one of the teams at my school, and we've been successful. So along the same lines of actually the next thing I was asked, my best and worst moments at Connections. My best moments have definitely been through Lego Robotics and Real World Design Challenge. Lego Robotics was really frustrating that I had to work with younger students, which, like, that's not a problem, but when we're talking, like, 7-year-old kids, well, not 7, because you have to be 9 or above, but when you're talking, like, 9-year-olds who are, like, really hyper and can't focus, making them build robots is not, like, the logical thing to do, but parents put their kids in things because parents are stupid. So it was frustrating at times, but we were a fairly successful team. We won teamwork and collaboration, research, and innovative solution. So it was, yeah, I mean, we were moderately successful, so it was fun to do while I was age eligible. But the Real World Design Challenge is like it's my baby. I'm like so proud of it. I spend so much time on this frickin' thing. And so yeah, I'm the team lead for that, and my best moments have definitely been as a competitor, like not even like doing schoolwork, nothing. No, just in this competition through school. We've won the state championship now for 3 years, and we've gone to nationals all 3. I've only been on the team for 2 because I've done freshman and sophomore year, and you have to be in high school to do this. And we've won the states both years and made it to nationals. My computer's doing terrible things. We made it to nationals, and so in 2012, last year, the challenge was to design a light sport aircraft that could fly. The national prompt was from Kitty Hawk, North Carolina? I'm sorry if that's South Carolina, I don't know. To Dayton, Ohio. Basically like following the Wright brothers path. So we designed a light sport aircraft to do that. And it was like super fuel efficient, and that was the thing, because they give you this objective function that you have to minimize. Well, at least you had to minimize it for that one. Sometimes you have to maximize it, depending on whether it's like performance or efficiency or whatever. And we minimized it, and we got it like really small. So we were like super efficient, and yeah, we made it to nationals, and there's a preliminary round of judging where you go and you're like in a room with a couple other teams and you present, and it's 20 minutes long, and then a panel of judges get to ask you questions about your design and team composition and things like that. And then awards are given out in various categories like design and report, because you have to do like a technical report that's like 100 pages long about everything that you've done. And things like that. And so those are for the top 10 teams, but then there's the top 3, the national finalists. And in 2012, last year, we got, if you made it into the top 3, you got to go to the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C., and present your design in front of the VP of Engineering at Lockheed, the U.S. Secretary of Transportation. Obama sent a letter to like the national finalists, and so we made it to the national finals, and we got to go and present there, and it was probably the best moment of my life, honestly, let alone just at school. So that was intense, like that was amazing. And I always think back to that because it was just, yeah, it was nice. We ended up getting second, and so it was my first year doing RWDC, and for me that was like, oh my god, we got second, like in the entire country. I'm so proud. Along those same lines, my worst moment ever enrolled in Connections has also been with the Real World Design Challenge. We went this year, we made it to nationals again. The prompt was to design an unmanned aircraft, like a drone, to find a lost child in this given like circular area of a park. Philmont Ranch, actually, if you're familiar with like Boy Scout stuff or whatever. And so we made a killer design, and we went to nationals, and we got through the preliminary round, and we were named like top 3 again. And we went and presented, and we had a great presentation. Like, I was so proud of everyone. This one, it wasn't at the National Air and Space Museum, so that was kind of sad, but whatever. Yeah, we presented, and then the reception, and people came up to us and were like, oh my god, you're so great, you're gonna win. And that's the trouble, because honestly, I thought we had it. Like, I thought, like, oh my god, we're gonna be national champions. We did it, finally. We went back in, and they called third, and it wasn't us. And I was like, dude, like, I think we have this. Like, we did an amazing job. We got second. Which, you know, second in the country, not bad, but you have to understand when you're there and you think you really have a legitimate shot at winning, hearing second is crushing. So, I was really disappointed. I mean, it was obviously, like, not nearly the worst moment of my life. 2012 Nationals, best moment, but 2013, this past just 4 or 5 months ago, you know, it was disappointing, but it wasn't. I'm not done. I want to win this year, or I want to win in senior year. I mean, I have 2 years left, and that's my goal. That's my thing. So both my best and worst moments have been in the Real World Design Challenge at my specific Connections Academy school. And that's the big competition that I do. And so if you can start like a Real World Design Challenge at your school, or if they have that, like, do it. It's really fun. If you like airplanes, because airplanes are awesome. Yeah, so sorry. Nerd attack. So, yeah, those were my best and worst moments. Now, things that I think about. I'm debating whether or not I should make this a separate video or continue ranting, because it might take a while. You know, I'm just gonna do another video, or continue this one, even though it's gonna be like a while, because whatever. So, what I think about things. I should probably start with Connections itself. I think they don't do enough outreach. And that's honestly why I made this blog, because they have a blog, and they blog, but they blog for parents, and they sugarcoat everything. And I understand that, like, that's their entire job, is to market the school and make it sound great, and it is great, but not for the reasons they say. Like, just to keep along, like, the outreach lines. They don't do enough for students. Like I said, the blog is for parents. They promote like such an authoritarian kind of, you will monitor your kids and you will make them do all this stuff. Not for high school kids. Like, I always get asked, is there a requirement? Like, do my parents have to interact with me? Not really. They just have to log hours and verify that you've done your assessments without like cheating or anything. And yet they turn around and they're all like, here's a reward system to use with your kid, and, you know, make sure your kid's doing this and that. And I just hate that, especially for high schoolers. Like, autonomy, like freedom and responsibility, I think that's so important, because you need to be motivated yourself. Like, you need to work towards your own goals, and I hate when parents project on their kids. Like, that's a personal rant of mine. I can't deal with that. And I'm really lucky that my parents aren't like that, but so many parents are, and Connections just feeds that, and I hate that so much. So they never really blog for kids. For students, they never give advice that's not like sugar-coated and twinkle toes and fairies and unicorns, which sucks, because high school's hard, and life is hard, and students should have an actual resource to go to and ask questions and get answers that aren't corporate bullshit. Sorry if you don't curse. I curse. So that's why I started the blog. So you can ask me questions and I can give you answers that aren't totally terrible. Hopefully, most of the time they're not totally terrible. Sorry if they are. Yeah. So, yeah. They don't do enough outreach. And along those same lines, I wish they had more student help. Like, they have the after-school program, which is okay. It's okay. If you need help in math or science or English or any of the core courses, social studies, you can go to this after-school program. It starts about a week or two after school starts, and they have a room staffed with teachers there and whatever. You can talk to them. That's fine. It's good. It's not so great because you can't talk to your specific teacher who has specific rules and specific expectations in their class and runs it their own way, really. So that's the downside. And then they have the peer tutoring program, which, again, is one of the reasons why I started the blog, because I think the problem with, like, a school-facilitated peer tutoring program, even though it can help kids, is that it necessarily puts one kid over the other. Like, it necessarily says this student is like a better student than this one, than the one coming for help. And that is such crap. Like, I can't deal with that kind of mentality where you're like giving one student tons of bonus points to like come and be a nice person to the other kid and help them out. Like, that's stupid. Sorry, it's like, I know I'm ranting, but I can't deal with that. I really can't. It's done in the right spirit. I understand that they just want, like, students to be talking to students and to be helping them out, but it's done poorly. And it's done poorly at most high schools. Like, it's not just Connections. Peer tutoring across the board nationally is just done terribly. And it makes kids to feel less than other kids, and that's not okay. And it's kind of interesting, like, I don't think the school markets itself correctly. Along those same lines, like, Connections attracts a demographic of kids who have been bullied. It's just a fact. And so when you come in and you have, if you're struggling academically and you go to this peer tutoring program, it's not bullying in the conventional sense at all. Like, I've known some very nice peer tutors who genuinely want to help other students, but it's just what that kind of system inherently, implies to kids, that here's this student who knows their stuff and you don't, and so you're going to listen to them and they're going to lecture you in this live lesson room and they're going to get credit for it. And yeah, it's done poorly. It's just done poorly. And so I think they market themselves incorrectly to, be attracting this kind of demographic of kids who have been bullied and then not execute as well on these outreach kinds of things. Like, it's not very strategic. So, yeah. And they also market themselves incorrectly poorly rather, by being like, oh, it's so flexible. It's more flexible than traditional school. Like, no one can contest that. It definitely is. But, like, all the time I see in tags, kids are like, I want to take an art class. I want to take AP. I want to take this or that. And guidance counselors are like, no, you can't take this course. Like, for no good reason. None at all. Sometimes just bad reasons. Sometimes for no reason. They're just like, you can't take this, you can't do this. And yet they go and market themselves as like, oh, we suit your child's individual learning needs and all that crap. And then again, they roll out this like timed assessment thing. Like, they attract a demographic of kids who want that flexibility and who have anxiety issues or have stress issues or whatever, and don't want that same kind of pressure on them. And here they are rolling that out. And it's just, it's so counterintuitive. I think it's counterproductive. And they don't recognize that because administration sucks. So I think that's the other thing, is that the school is great. Like, they're right that online school is great and can be great, but they're using the wrong reasons, I think, sometimes, or they're sugarcoating things too much. So, yeah. My other two rants aren't so specific to online school itself, but it does apply. If you've watched my other videos and you're still watching at this point, and you're brave if you are, because we're 28 minutes in, SAT, like standardized test scores and grades, that's the one thing. And then this idea of like intelligence, which I kind of touched on with peer tutoring, but not a ton. So I guess I'll start with standardized tests and grades, but mostly standardized tests. You need to understand that they only test you along one dimension. And that one dimension is not the content that they're supposedly testing you on, and your understanding of it, and your ability to solve problems. It's really not. Never, ever believe that. It's just your ability to take that test. That is what standardized tests are. And this isn't me, like, just being a bitter student who doesn't like testing. It's just true. And it really bothers me as a person. That's why I'm including it in this, like, personal video. Because it makes kids to feel like they're not adequate. I mean, people put so much weight on these standardized test scores. And even kids all the time, like, if they hear that their friend got, like, a 5 on the AP Physics exam or something, what just comes out, because it's so deeply ingrained in our culture, is, oh, they're so smart. And I'm not saying, like, go crap on your friend's achievements if they've gotten high scores. Not at all. And, you know, you can be proud of a high score, but it doesn't indicate what you think it indicates. And I think standardized tests are harmful because there's just this cultural idea that they they measure how good you are at something, or how good you are at understanding problems or solving problems, and they don't measure that. They measure how good you are at taking the test. So if you're really good at taking the test and you want to be proud of yourself, go for it. But don't think any less of yourself because you got a low score. Ever. It's absurd that we use it to determine how much funding school gets. We use it to but it factors into admission decisions. It can determine, what college or university you go to, which then determines what kind of job you get and kind of sets your trajectory. And it's absurd that we're using such weak metrics to evaluate our own students. Like, it makes me angry. It's inefficient. And I'm an engineer. This is how I think. I think about efficiency and what makes sense and how are the best ways to run things. And this is not it. And so, standardized tests, especially in high school, get talked about a lot with the SAT and the ACT. By the way, if you're going to take those, don't take the ACT, take the SAT. I'll talk about that in another video somewhere. And we use it to, kind of evaluate how good our students are. Sorry, I kind of just lost my train of thought there, but whatever. So yeah, standardized tests are bad. Well, not bad, but they only evaluate one thing, and they don't evaluate what everyone else thinks they are. Okay, I'm done. If you can exempt out, in most states you can't, but people do anyway. In my state, it's the only one where you can officially be no, I have a philosophical objection or a religious exception to this. And your parent has to go in and sign a form that says that they have a religious problem with it or whatever. It doesn't matter if they do or not. As long as they say that, it's fine in my state. But in other states, it's not necessarily like that. In some states, I think you can exempt out. In some, you can substitute it for a project or something, which I would recommend doing. But if there's any way at all to rig it so that you don't have to take standardized tests, then do. The thing that you need to know, and I'm not talking about the SAT or ACT, because you do need to take those if you want to go to college or university. I'm talking about state-mandated achievement tests that they do. If it's an end-of-course kind of assessment and it factors into your grade, then you do want to take that. You have to take that because it factors into your grade. But if it's just a state performance, how well is your school doing, and you are not getting graded on it, and it does not contribute to whether or not you can graduate, don't take it if you don't have to. If there's any way that you can exempt out, and you can Google your state and the Department of Education and testing standards and find out, don't. You don't have to do that. It's a big stressor and it causes anxiety in a lot of kids, and there's no reason why that should be. I think I'm done now. My other rant is intelligence, which is kind of along the same lines. Things that, the idea of intelligence and how much it matters is kind of really ingrained in our culture, and we talk about it all the time, how smart people are. But I think people blow way out of proportion this idea of how smart someone is and what that enables them to do. Like I said, I'm an engineer. I'm in science and technology. I'm big into that. And what I hear all the time from students, and it makes me so sad, is I'm not smart enough to do physics or to do chemistry or to do math. I'm just not good at math. I'm naturally not good at math. And it's a lie, and it's not an intentional lie. You think you're bad at math naturally and you're just being malicious or something. I understand that you may genuinely think that, but I think it's so sad that this is what our culture has taught kids to think, that you're just naturally smarter than another kid or less smart than another kid or not capable of doing math, and I don't think that's true. Psychological research shows that there is something that's intelligence, obviously. there is a distinction between people who are intelligent enough to function and people who aren't. But when we get into like a much smaller scale, just day-to-day things, it's blown so out of proportion that it makes kids to believe that they can't do certain things because they're not smart enough. When really, like, educational research shows that 10,000 hours, basically, is the amount of time it takes to become a master in almost anything. Like, yeah, you're not going to be an Olympian if you're not physically capable of it, but that's the amount of time that it takes to master pretty much any kind of, like, mental skill. And that encompasses, you know, learning to play instruments. That encompasses math skills. Things like that. It's much more a function of the time things takes than how smart you are. So don't buy into that. Like, please, don't think less of yourself because people tell you that this is some kind of valid idea. Intelligence exists, and it's a measure in psychology. And I think it should stay in psychology because it's a much weaker measurement than people make it out to be. And much less relevant than sitting down and working really hard at something. That will get you places. That will get you farther than the people who are like just born geniuses, which I don't think is very valid anyway. So I know that that's like completely randomly seeming like rant, but it's related to school, and I see this all the time. Kids are like, I'm not intelligent enough to do this, and that's wrong. So don't believe that. Work hard, do stuff. Hopefully that was an okay, like, personal video. I know that this is much longer than any of my other videos, mostly because of the rants. But I know that probably seems like really narcissistic that this video is much longer than everyone else's. Sorry about that. Hopefully that answers some of your questions about me and what I think about Connections Academy and like education in general and what my experiences have been. Thanks.